Today we'll learn about life aboard the Mayflower of 1620. I'm your trainer, Lori Coffey. As a history evangelist, I love the Pilgrims. When I discovered that I was descended from them, I started researching all about them. But it was hard to find anything about the ship that carried them into this new age. So I've been working on it ever since. There were actually 26 ships named Mayflower in the English port books at that time. No one took an inventory of the people that got on the ship, let alone the details of the ship itself. So it's hard to tell which one. You have to look carefully to make sure you're on the right one. But through research, we can piece together a picture of the ship and the life aboard it that made the voyage that changed history. Let's go back 12 or so generations to what life aboard the Mayflower was like. If, like me, you have an ancestor or nine who took that world-shaking voyage on the Mayflower, congratulations. Even if you don't have a Mayflower ancestor, it's likely that some of your ancestors shared a similar journey, no matter where they came from. And I've had people tell me that they came on the second or third or fourth ship, and that's just as good, practically the same. So let's start at the beginning with the preparations. Cruising was a little different back then. Who else likes to cruise? Anybody like to cruise? No? Oh. Has anybody been to Harwich in England? You've probably been there if you know it's not pronounced Harwich, but Harwich. For my 50th birthday, I took a cruise to see the Northern Europe of my ancestry. We left from this famous port town. It's still a famous port town. That's where Master Christopher Jones and the Mayflower were from. Notice we call him master and not captain. In 1620, captain was a title only used by the English army. As a skilled master mariner, Christopher earned the title of Master Jones. He was born into the shipping industry and inherited and bought many ships, but Mayflower was good to handle, so he also took the helm of her. At age 50, he and his second wife, Josiah Gray Jones, were expecting their 8th child to arrive sometime in the spring of 1621. He did, and it was a boy. He had time for one more long voyage before then. Here's a fun fact. I love fun facts. Mayflower's inauspicious start was hauling English wool, their biggest export, to Trondheim, Norway, to bring back lumber and dried fish just ahead of the creditors. Delays getting the return load caused one of the 4 owners to be sent to debtor's prison. Another fun fact, for the next 10 years, Master Jones and his Mayflower had a regular run of hauling the English wool to France and returning with 180 tons, that's TUNS, or taxable casks, each holding 260 gallons of wine or cognac. The ship's aroma was said to be sweet. Mayflower was likely a Dutch cargo float, pronounced float. She was square-rigged, with a beakhead bow or pointy front to slice through the wind. 3 masts across the 7 seas, or at least the North Sea, the English Channel, and now the North Atlantic. Master's cabin was where likely the Mayflower Compact was signed. Above was the poop deck and chart room. Forward of that was a steerage room with a tiller extension to control the ship's rudder. Likely the officers also slept there, making it completely off limits to the passengers. Also off limits was the gun room below, on the same deck as the Pilgrims, where the guns and black powder were stored under lock and key. 4 of the ship's small cannons stayed with the Pilgrims. By 1619, Master Jones had moved his family and ship to Rotherhithe on the Thames to be closer to London. Unfortunately for their shipping business, English wool had tanked on the world marketplace, so these lucrative shipping runs to France slowed to a stop. Mayflower had to find work. The ship and her master caught the eye of Cushman and Carver. Robert Cushman and John Carver were on a business trip to England from the Netherlands, which we call what? What do we call the Netherlands? Holland, right? They were representing a group of British expatriates. They are under attack because they want to separate from the almighty Church of England. Seeking freedom for their new church, they had moved to Amsterdam more than a decade ago and are now living in the town of Leiden. The congregation has grown to 300, so they again need to move, this time to a new land with room to raise their English families. But they are poor and they need help paying for the voyage. So they send Cushman and Carver back to England to find the money. The money men are the adventurers, 70 London merchants, gamblers who will invest in a new colony in the New World and fully expect to be paid back with dividends. This is only the third time a venture like this has been tried. The second time was to plant the colony of Jamestown in 1607. Do you know where the first venture went? To Moscow in 1555 to sell that good English wool to Ivan the Terrible. This venture was only for trade, not to plant a colony. Today, we would call the money men venture capitalists or Shark Tank. Same thing. The ones traveling to plant the new colony are called the planters. Later, they call themselves the first comers. They are making a permanent move to the New World. So, in addition to paying for the cruise, they need a long list of shopping supplies. A suit of clothes and shoes or boots, times 4 for every man, woman, and child, plus extra fabric for replacements. After all, they're starting in a new land with no shopping malls. Specialty clothes like capes, cloaks, and hats. And because they don't know what is in this new world, they need armor and a helmet for every man. What else? Storage chests and sea chests for all those clothes, plus bedding and baby things for the smallest pilgrims. Tools big, like a giant iron screw used as an apple cider press, a printing press, and a ceiling beam jack, and tools small, like hatchets, to help turn trees into houses. Gear to get food and protection from who knows what, including one small fowling piece and a 5-foot-long musket, one sword, one bandolier, kegs of powder, and 60 pounds of shot per gun, times 50, one set for each man, plus a cannon for signaling and protection. For cooking, one iron pot, one copper kettle, one gridiron, one large frying pan, 2 skillets, one spit, platters, dishes, spoons of wood. They didn't use forks, just fingers. So they brought plenty of napkins and towels, plus soap for each family. They spent 700 pounds, or about $82,000 today. But they still were short ammo and weapons. We also know about their personal supplies from the Pilgrim Hall Museum, such as John Alden's halberd, William White's writing cabinet and their baby peregrine's cradle, Edward Winslow's mortar and pestle for grinding herbs, Peter Brown's wooden beer tankard, look at the size of that, William Bradford's underbreeches, we might call those skivvies, and they're purple. William Mullins, a shoe and boot maker, brings his wife Alice, teens Joseph and pretty Priscilla Mullins, who all work in the family business with him. They have cobbled 250 pairs of shoes and 13 pair of boots that they bring on the Mayflower. Because the English have had trading experience in Africa, they know to bring plenty of shiny glass trading beads, which will serve them well in the New World too. Plus other trade goods like small knives and cooking pots and other metal hand tools, a copper chain, which becomes an identity card for the emissaries of their new friend Massasoit, leader of the local native tribe. Woolen blankets, articles of clothing, especially red riding jackets, and ship's biscuit, one of their food staples, plus dried English peas and dried plums, a particular favorite of the natives. One important item they forgot: fishing hooks to start their planned fishing industry. Oops. What about food for themselves? Enough to hold them for an entire year until they get new crops or provisions from the expected supply ships. Starting with the most important liquid drunk by man, woman, and child in 1620, beer. I think that's funny. Followed by water for cooking, cider, and Dutch gin to give them Dutch courage. Then the staples: oatmeal, rice, and those twice-baked ship biscuits. Protein for the voyage: hard cheese, dried meats and fish, dried peas and fruit, plus onions, turnips, and other root vegetables, packed in straw, plus firkins, I love that, firkins, of cooking fat and butter, salt, spices, and flavorings to make spoiled food taste palatable, all packed into barrels under lock and key. Another preparation: Where in the English world will they go? Canada? Too cold. Virginia? Jamestown has too many Church of England members. But Northern Virginia, along the Hudson River, what do we call that today? New York. It wasn't even New Amsterdam yet. It was nothing but wilderness, where there are no friends to welcome them, nor inns to entertain or refresh their weather-beaten bodies, no houses or much less towns to repair to, as William Bradford wrote. Here's another fun fact. Did the Pilgrims consider going to the Caribbean? Yes, to save money on clothes. Imagine the Pilgrims with tan lines. It's a good thing they didn't go because almost everyone who went there died from disease.